I used to believe that love could survive anything. Long hours, empty bank accounts, missed holidays, delayed dreams. As long as two people believed in each other, I thought they could build a future together. For 5 years, that belief had a name. Chloe? When I first met her, she laughed at one of my terrible jokes and said, "You're lucky I'm nice, or I would have walked away." I laughed and answered, "Good thing you're staying." She smiled. "I guess I am." Back then, neither of us had much money. We shared cheap coffee instead of fancy dinners. We celebrated birthdays with homemade cakes. Sometimes we walked through the city for hours because neither of us wanted to spend money on entertainment. Those were some of the happiest days of my life. Whenever life became difficult, Chloe would squeeze my hand and whisper, "One day we'll look back at this and laugh." I always believed her. When she decided she wanted an MBA, I didn't hesitate. "I don't know if I can afford it," she told me one evening. "You can," I answered. She frowned. "How?" "I'll figure it out." "Ethan, that's not your responsibility. It is if we're building a future together." She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "You'd really do that for me?" I smiled. "I'd do a lot more than that." From that day forward, my life became one long routine. Work, overtime, sleep, repeat. Some nights I came home so tired that I fell asleep before eating dinner. Chloe would gently wake me. "You need to eat." "I'm fine." "No, you're not." She would place a warm plate in front of me and say, "When I graduate, I'll make all of this worth it." Those words kept me going. Whenever my coworkers invited me on trips, I declined. Whenever my friends suggested vacations, I refused. Noah, my older brother, noticed the changes. One afternoon, he leaned against my workbench and crossed his arms. "When was the last time you bought something for yourself?" I shrugged. "I don't remember." "And you're okay with that?" "I am." He looked at me for several seconds. "Ethan, don't lose yourself trying to save someone else." I laughed. "I'm not losing myself. I'm investing in our future." He sighed. "I hope she sees everything you're giving up." So do I. I truly believed she did. Every late-night phone call ended the same way. "I love you," she would say. "I love you more," I'd answer. Then she'd laugh. "No, you don't." "Want to bet?" Always. Looking back now, I wonder whether she already knew how our story would end. Maybe she did. Maybe I was the only one still dreaming. Months passed. Her confidence grew. She started attending business events, networking dinners, professional conferences. She met people I had never heard of. Every time I asked how her day went, she'd smile. "It was great." "What happened?" "I met some important people." "I'm proud of you." "Thanks." The conversation slowly became shorter. The hugs became quicker. The late-night calls became less frequent. I noticed the changes. I just kept convincing myself they were temporary, because that's what people in love do. They believe, even when the evidence quietly tells them not to. The morning after Chloe left me, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror and barely recognized the man staring back at me. My eyes were red. My shoulders felt heavy. Her words kept repeating inside my head. "We're easy to replace, and Levin, No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't silence them. I stopped answering phone calls. I ignored messages. I even pulled the curtains closed because I didn't want to see the world outside. For days, I convinced myself that staying alone would make the pain disappear. It didn't. Every quiet moment only made her voice louder. Then someone knocked on my apartment door. I knew that knock. It was my older brother, Noah. "Ethan," he called, "open the door." "I'm fine." "No, you're not. I just need some time." "You've had enough time. Open the door." I unlocked it. The moment he saw me, he frowned. "You haven't eaten, have you?" I wasn't hungry. "When was the last time you slept?" "I don't know." He walked into my apartment, looked around at the empty coffee cups, and sighed. "This isn't heartbreak anymore," he said. "This is you giving up." "I'm tired." "No," he replied firmly. "You're defeated. There's a difference." I looked away. "I gave her everything." "I know." "I worked overtime." "I know." "I helped pay for her MBA." "I know." "So why wasn't I enough?" Noah placed his hand on my shoulder. "Because the wrong person will never see your value." I laughed bitterly. "Easy for you to say." "No, Ethan, it's the truth." I didn't answer. He continued. "You keep asking why she left." I nodded. "Start asking a better question." "What question?" "What are you going to do now?" That question stayed with me long after he left. A few days later, my phone rang again. This time it was Sophia. She had been my friend since college. "Ethan, I heard what happened." "I'm okay." "Don't lie to me." I smiled for the first time in days. "I forgot you always know." "I do." There was a brief silence. Then she said softly, "She didn't leave because you lacked value." "I don't feel valuable." "That's because you're letting one person's opinion become your identity." "I don't know how to stop." "You start by remembering who you were before you met her." Her words settled deep inside me. That evening, I opened social media. The first picture I saw was Chloe standing beside Tyler on a luxury yacht. Both of them were smiling. The caption read, "Is to take with your business, and new beginnings deserve beautiful views." So, my chest tightened. Without thinking, I closed the app. Then I opened it again. I unfollowed Chloe. I blocked her account. I blocked Tyler too. I whispered to myself, I don't need front row seats to my own heartbreak anymore. For the first time since the breakup, I felt a small sense of peace. Days turned into weeks. I slowly returned to coding, not because I wanted success, because writing software was the only time my mind stopped hurting. One afternoon, an email appeared in my inbox. The sender's name caught my attention. Daniel Kim. The subject line was simple. "I saw your project. Let's talk. Pass." I opened it immediately. "Ethan, I recently came across one of your old software projects online. It's one of the smartest systems I've seen in years. If you're interested in building something bigger, I'd love to meet." I stared at the screen. For months, I had believed my story was over. Maybe it was only beginning. I looked out the window and took a deep breath. For the first time since Chloe walked away, I didn't think about proving her wrong. I thought about proving myself right. Maybe rebuilding my life wasn't revenge. Maybe it was freedom. And for the first time in a very long time, that future didn't scare me. It gave me hope. People always say time heals everything. I used to hate hearing that. Every time someone said those words, I wanted to ask how much time? A week? A month? A year? Because every morning I still woke up hearing Chloe's voice inside my head. You were easy to replace, Thaster. For a long time, those words controlled me. Then, one morning, I looked at my laptop instead of my phone. I stopped searching for answers I would never receive. Instead, I opened my old software project. I whispered to myself, if I can't fix my heart today, maybe I can build something with these hands. That was the first real step forward. A few days later, I met Daniel Kim. He smiled as we shook hands. So you're Ethan. I am. I've been looking for the person who built that software. I built it years ago. He leaned forward. Then why are you working for someone else? I laughed quietly. Because dreams don't always pay rent. He smiled. Sometimes they do. I raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? I mean, I want to invest in your idea. I stared at him. You're serious? I never joke about talent. I stayed silent for several seconds. Finally, I asked, why me? He answered without hesitation. Because I can teach business. But I can't teach vision. And you already have that. For the first time in months, I felt something stronger than pain. Hope. A week later, we rented a tiny office. Calling it an office was generous. The paint was old. The desks didn't match. The coffee machine barely worked. I laughed as I looked around. This place is terrible. Daniel laughed too. Good. I frowned. Good? If we succeed here, we'll never forget where we started. I smiled. I like that. We spent every day building our product. Some nights we stayed until sunrise. Some mornings we forgot to eat breakfast. Whenever I became frustrated, Daniel would look at me and say, "Don't chase perfection. Build progress." Those words slowly replaced the ones Chloe had left behind. One afternoon, Daniel walked into my office with a smile. We've got our first client. I stood up so quickly that my chair rolled across the room. You're kidding. I'm not. Really? He nodded. They loved your presentation. I couldn't believe it. Someone believed in my work. Not because of my connections. Not because of my money. Because of my ability. That evening, I sat alone after everyone left. I looked around the small office and smiled. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about proving Chloe wrong. I was thinking about proving myself right, and somehow, that felt even better. I never expected Emma Brooks to become the person who reminded me how far I had come. Her message appeared on my phone late one evening while I was reviewing a presentation for an investor meeting. Hi, Ethan. You probably don't remember me. I'm Tyler's younger sister. Can we talk? I stared at the screen for a moment before replying. Of course. Is everything okay? A few minutes later, we met at a quiet coffee shop near my office. Emma looked nervous. Thank you for coming, she said. I wasn't sure you would. I smiled politely. You sounded worried. She wrapped both hands around her coffee cup. Saw your interview on television. Oh? You've built an incredible company. Thank you. She hesitated before speaking again. I didn't contact you to congratulate you. I leaned forward. Then why did you... She took a slow breath. I think you deserve to know the truth. What truth? It's about Tyler and Chloe. For a second, I almost stopped her. A year earlier, I would have wanted every detail. Now, I wasn't sure I cared. She noticed my silence. I know you've moved on. I'm trying. I can see that. So, what happened? Emma lowered her eyes. My brother isn't happy. I frowned. I thought they were living the perfect life. That's what everyone sees online. And in real life? She gave me a sad smile. They fight almost every day. I didn't answer. She continued. Chloe keeps telling Tyler he needs to earn more. I slowly shook my head. He already has a good job. It isn't enough for her. Emma looked embarrassed. She compares him to richer men. I felt a strange emotion. Not happiness. Not anger. Just quiet disbelief. Emma continued speaking. Last week, I heard her say, if you really loved me, you'd give me the lifestyle I deserve. I looked out the window. For years, I had imagined Chloe living the perfect dream. Now that dream sounded exhausting. Emma watched my expression. You're not smiling. I don't think this is something to celebrate. Most people would. I've spent too much time hurting. She nodded. I guess you've changed. I had to. She looked relieved. I was afraid you'd enjoy hearing this. I answered, honestly, I don't. She tilted her head. Why not? Because I once loved her. Even after everything, saying those words felt natural. Emma smiled gently. I think that's why you've become successful. What do you mean? You stopped letting bitterness decide who you are. Her words stayed with me long after we left the cafe. Driving back to the office, I realized something unexpected. For the first time since Chloe walked away, her life no longer felt connected to mine. Whatever choices she made, whatever mistakes she repeated, they no longer decided how I felt about myself. That realization felt more valuable than any business deal I had ever signed. The morning started like every other morning. I walked into my office carrying a cup of black coffee while reviewing the day's interview schedule on my tablet. Nothing seemed unusual. Nothing warned me that the past was about to walk through my front door. Grace knocked gently before stepping inside. Good morning, Ethan. Morning, Grace. Busy day? She smiled. 3 client meetings, 1 investor call, and 4 interviews. Sounds normal. It was. I looked up. Was? She placed a resume on my desk. I think you should look at this one. I picked it up without much interest. The moment my eyes reached the applicant's name, my fingers stopped moving. Tyler Brooks. For several long seconds, I simply stared at the paper. Grace watched me carefully. You know him. I let out a slow breath. I do. The same Tyler? I nodded once. The same one. She remained silent, giving me time to collect myself. Finally, she asked, do you want me to assign another interviewer? I leaned back in my chair. Years ago, I would have said yes. Years ago, anger would have made the decision for me. Today felt different. I smiled calmly. No. You're sure? I am. Grace folded her arms. This could be uncomfortable. It probably will be. So why do it? I looked out the window before answering. Because I don't want my past deciding my future. She smiled. I'll send him in when he arrives. After she left, I looked at Tyler's resume again. His experience wasn't terrible. His previous company had closed after losing several major contracts. His cover letter was short. One sentence caught my attention. I'm looking for an opportunity to rebuild my career. I quietly whispered, so am I. Not my career. My understanding of who I had become. 20 minutes later, Grace called through the office phone. He's here. Send him in. I placed the resume on my desk and folded my hands. The door opened slowly. Tyler walked inside without looking up. Good morning, sir. Thank you for... His voice stopped. His eyes met mine. Every bit of confidence disappeared from his face. Ethan? I gave a polite nod. Good morning, Tyler. He stood frozen near the door. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, I gestured toward the chair. Please, have a seat. I didn't know. I know. You own this company? Yes. He slowly sat down, still unable to believe what he was seeing. I thought... He stopped speaking. I smiled faintly. You thought I was someone else? He lowered his eyes. I never imagined this. I opened his resume. Let's begin the interview. He looked surprised. You're actually interviewing me? That's why you're here. His hands trembled slightly as he adjusted his tie. I noticed the nervousness immediately. Years earlier, I had been the nervous one. Now the roles had changed, but I had no intention of making him feel the pain I once carried. Not today. Not ever. The morning after Tyler's interview, I thought life would return to normal. I was wrong. Grace walked into my office carrying her tablet. Ethan, there's someone downstairs asking to see you. Do I know them? She hesitated. I think you do. Who is it? She took a slow breath. Chloe. For a moment, I simply looked at her. I didn't expect that. I don't think she expected this either. What do you mean? Grace smiled gently. She walked into the lobby, looked around, and asked if she had the wrong building. I couldn't help smiling. She really said that? Yes. Then what happened? One of the receptionists told her this is the headquarters. I leaned back in my chair. And? She asked, who owned the company? I already knew the answer. Grace continued. When the receptionist said your name, Chloe just stood there. Did she say anything? Only one sentence. What was it? That can't be possible. Silence filled my office. Years ago, I had imagined this moment 100 different ways. I thought I would feel victorious. Instead, I only felt calm. Grace studied my face. Do you want me to tell her you're unavailable? I shook my head. No. You sure? I've spent too many years avoiding conversations inside my own head. So you'll see her? Yes. Grace nodded. I'll send her in. A few minutes later, the door opened. Chloe stepped inside slowly. She looked around my office before looking at me. Neither of us spoke. Finally, I smiled politely. "Hello, Chloe." She swallowed hard. "Hi, Ethan. It's been a long time." "Yes." I pointed toward the chair across from my desk. "Please, sit down." She remained standing. "I never imagined." Her voice faded. I waited patiently. She looked through the glass wall overlooking the busy office. Hundreds of employees moved between meeting rooms. Phones rang. People laughed. Teams celebrated another successful project. She whispered, almost to herself, "You built all of this?" "Yes." "By yourself?" "Not alone." I smiled. "I had people who believed in me." She slowly sat down. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything." "No, I do." She looked directly into my eyes for the first time. "I owe you an apology." The room became completely silent. Those were the words I once dreamed of hearing. But now, they no longer carried the power they once had. I folded my hands and quietly answered, "I'm listening." Tyler sat across from me with his resume still resting on my desk. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. Finally, he broke the silence. "I don't deserve your kindness." I looked at him calmly. "This isn't about what you deserve." He lowered his eyes. "I made a lot of mistakes." "I know. I thought taking Chloe away from you meant I had won." I stayed quiet. "I was arrogant." He rubbed his hands together. "I believed money solved everything." "And now?" He let out a long breath. "Now I know character matters more." I nodded slowly. "That's an expensive lesson. It cost me almost everything." For a moment, I remembered the night Chloe looked into my eyes and said I was easy to replace. The memory still hurt, but it no longer controlled me. Tyler looked at me again. "I know you have every reason to hate me." "I don't hate you." His eyebrows lifted. "You don't?" "I hated what happened. I hated the pain. But I don't want to spend the rest of my life carrying that anger." He swallowed hard. "I'm sorry, Ethan." The apology sounded genuine. Not because it erased the past, because it carried no excuses. "I can't change what I did," he continued. "I know. I can only ask for one chance." "One chance for what?" "To rebuild my life." I leaned back in my chair. "If I hire you, you'll start at the bottom." "I understand." "No special treatment?" "I don't expect any." "You'll report to people younger than you." "I'll respect that." "You'll earn trust through your work." "I will." I studied his face. The confidence he once wore like armor had disappeared. In its place stood a man humbled by life. I pressed the intercom. "Grace, could you come in for a moment?" A few seconds later, Grace entered my office. "You called?" I smiled. "Please prepare an entry-level project coordinator contract for Tyler." Grace looked from me to Tyler. Then she smiled. "Right away." After she left, Tyler stared at me. "You're giving me the job?" "I'm giving you an opportunity." He stood slowly. "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to thank me." "Then why are you doing this?" I answered without hesitation. Because I refuse to become the kind of person who enjoys watching someone else fall. He nodded, his eyes filled with gratitude. At that moment, I realized something important. Winning had never been about standing above someone else. It was about becoming someone I could respect every time I looked in the mirror. Several months passed faster than I ever expected. One Monday morning, Victor walked into my office carrying a folder and the biggest smile I had ever seen on his face. "I've been waiting to tell you this in person," he said. I laughed. "Now I'm curious." He placed the folder on my desk. "Open it." I flipped through the pages, then looked back at him. "This is an international partnership." "It is." "You're serious?" "I've never been more serious." I stood up and shook his hand. "We actually did it." He smiled. "No, Ethan. You did it." A week later, hundreds of business leaders filled the largest conference hall in the city. Our company's new partnership would officially be announced that afternoon. Standing behind the stage curtain, I adjusted my tie and took a slow breath. Grace walked over and smiled. "Nervous?" "A little." "Good." I laughed. "Why is that good?" "Because it means this still matters to you." Before I could answer, Victor stepped beside me. "The room is full." "I heard. There are reporters from 3 countries. You're not helping." He laughed. "You'll be fine." The lights dimmed. The audience became quiet. Victor walked onto the stage first. After thanking everyone for attending, he smiled toward me. "Today," he said, "I'd like to introduce the man whose vision turned a small dream into an international company." My name echoed through the hall. The audience applauded as I walked onto the stage. For just a second, memories rushed through my mind. The tiny office, the broken coffee machine, the endless nights, the heartbreak that once convinced me my future had ended. Now I stood before hundreds of people because I had refused to quit. I stepped to the microphone. "Thank you." The applause slowly faded. I used to believe success meant proving someone else wrong. I paused. I was wrong. The room became completely silent. I've learned that success begins the moment you stop asking other people to decide your worth. Several people nodded. I continued. There was a time when I believed losing someone meant losing myself. I smiled gently. It doesn't. Sometimes losing the wrong person gives you the chance to finally meet the right version of yourself. The audience applauded again. As I looked across the crowd, my eyes stopped on one familiar face. Chloe? She stood quietly near the back of the room. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't angry. She simply watched me with tears already forming in her eyes. For the first time in years, seeing her didn't reopen an old wound. It reminded me how completely that wound had healed.